Hey guys, my name is Joanna. Thanks for checking out my channel. Today I'm so excited to introduce to you our little boy. So I'm going to introduce to you our little boy today. The first part of our video is going to be me showing him to you and telling you his name and kind of how we picked it and all the fun like birth statistics, things like that. The second half of the video will be me telling you his birth story. I know that there are varying ages of people who watch these videos, so I would recommend that the birth story be for adults. Not that I'm going to go into the gruesome details, but I think it's more appropriate for older people. You're still welcome to come and meet him and see us at the beginning, which I'm really excited for. Of course, if this is just not a good time for you to listen to a birth story, same thing goes for you. You're welcome to hang out with us for the beginning, and then those of you who'd like to stick around for the second half, we will do the birth story. Okay, here he is. This is Theodore David Tate, our sweet little boy who we love very much. He is starting to discover screens, so I won't keep him on too long. Whoa! What is that? What is that? So my husband had mentioned the name Theo years ago, kind of early on when we had gotten married. I remember not loving the name, but just kind of keeping it in the back of my mind. And then more recently, when we were seriously talking about names, I think I saw the name Theodore and then thought back to, hey, Theo could be the short name, the short form. And I told my husband he loved it because he had originally loved the name Theo. We also looked up the name Theodore to kind of find out what it meant, and it means God's gift. And I think every baby is a gift, and he's especially one for us because he's our rainbow baby. If you've seen other videos, you know that we had a miscarriage before him, so we were extra thankful for this little guy. So once we found out the meaning of the name, we were pretty well set. I had a name that I'd loved forever, which maybe we get to use in the future, and my husband had a name that he loved, but Theodore was one we both, just fell in love with. And after using Theo as the short form, of course Theodore, that name also gets Teddy or Ted as a short form, so he has lots of options. But yeah, we really settled on that getting closer to when he was born. So his middle name is David, and that is after my father. He passed away when I was quite young. I was just 5 years old. And for a long time now, I've always thought it'd be really cool to honor him by using his name as a middle name if I ever had a boy. And we did, so David is his middle name. So my brother and sister and I had all talked about it because I didn't want to take that name away, especially from my brother, because that's already his middle name. But we kind of decided collectively that we're okay if cousins have the same middle name, especially if we're honoring somebody. So I was glad that we had that conversation and that we could use David as his middle name. So Theodore was born on December 16th, 2020 at 2:48 a.m. He was an emergency C-section, so I was in labor for the day on the 15th, and then early in the morning, or late at night I should say, they decided they couldn't get a consistent heart rate for him, so we did a C-section. He was 7 pounds 15 ounces when he was born, so that's just an ounce under 8 pounds. He had pooped and peed already, so before they weighed him, I can't remember if it was 2 poops and 1 pee, something like that. He had a lot of bowel movements anyways before he was weighed. So they said he could have been 8 pounds, but officially he was 7 pounds 16 ounces. You're not that anymore, are ya? Because you're growing. And he was 21 inches when he was born. A friend of ours made a really cute shirt with all of his information on it, which I love. Okay, so I've got my phone and I referenced some notes so I can remember everything. I went over the birth story with my husband too, because if you've had a baby or heard other stories, sometimes it can get a little blurry. So I think we got most of this right. So Theodore was due on December 7th. So I finished work on December 3rd and then had a few days off, in my mind anyways, before he was born. But I kept being checked by my OB and I was always just 1 centimeter and they weren't really seeing a lot of progress. So we decided that if I had gone over by a week, if I was in my 41st week of pregnancy, then we would talk about induction and what that would look like. So I had an appointment scheduled for December 15th to see my OB. And at that point, we were going to decide if I wasn't progressing on my own, we were going to decide and book an induction. So I woke up on the 15th at 5:30 in the morning. My husband was already getting ready for work. He's a champ and starts work at 6 o'clock in the morning. I could not do that. But he's getting ready. I got up to go to the bathroom and I remember feeling kind of grumpy. Like he said good morning to me and I was like, good morning, you know, kind of half asleep. So I went back to sleep and I woke up again at 7 and I was starting to feel kind of some mild cramping. I had never given birth before, so I really didn't know what to expect, but I was noticing that they were regular. They weren't super close together, but I was regularly getting what I now know were little contractions. I had been getting Braxton Hicks like the weeks leading up to going into labor, but this was different. This was something that was consistently happening. They weren't stopping if I sat down. They were still mild at this point, but definitely regular. So I called my husband at work because we wanted to make sure he could get back in time and we could go to the hospital together if I was going to be in labor. I gave him a call. He said, you know, keep me posted because they were still pretty manageable. And we decided I'd wait a little bit, call labor and delivery at my hospital, kind of explain what was going on and see what they were gonna say. So I think I had a shower. We don't have a tub, unfortunately, but I had a shower, tried to kind of relax. I couldn't really do that too much. I had an exercise ball, which was great. So I was hanging out on the exercise ball. And a couple hours later, they were definitely starting to feel more, get stronger, I should say. So I remember calling my husband back and he tells the story so well, I can't even do it, but I was saying, I don't know if this is it. And then he heard me kind of like breathing through them and making a sound through them. And he's like, I think this is it. So I called labor and delivery and they said I was likely in, you know, the early stages of labor. So to stay at home as long as I could, because it is nicer to labor at home. So we did that. I knew that I had my appointment at 1 o'clock that day. So either we were gonna go to the appointment at 1 o'clock or head into labor and delivery. So 1 o'clock, I go see my OB and I'm getting the consistent contractions and I'm needing to kind of breathe through them at this point. And he says that I'm still 1 centimeter, so he's still gonna send me off to be induced because that might just help me move forward at that point. So I was going to the hospital at 4 o'clock to be induced and left my OB's appointment at 2 o'clock. We kind of decided, you know, we only had 2 hours. We don't live very far from the hospital, but I didn't want to go home. I was kind of just ready to keep this going. So we decided to go get chicken wings because I wanted to eat something before I was going to be in the hospital for a little while. So we got chicken wings, and in the time that it took from us ordering them, waiting in the car, the contractions got a lot more intense and I was definitely having trouble breathing through them. We pulled over a few times because I wanted to stand up instead of sitting in the car, things like that. And by the time we got the chicken wings, I was getting kind of antsy. You know, I was ready to get to the hospital. So we sat in the hospital parking lot, ate some chicken wings, then we went inside. I got there around 4 because they were gonna check me to be induced. But by the time the OB checked me at 5 o'clock, I was 4 centimeters. So I was into active labor, which was great because I remember thinking, if I'm still 1 centimeter, this is gonna be crazy. So at 4 centimeters, I was in, for me anyways, I felt like I was in pain. And I asked the OB if we could start getting ready to get an epidural. So they signed us in, admitted us to the hospital and sent us off to our room. It was actually really cool because we went into So we went into our room and there was paper hearts all over the window. My husband sent me a picture coming in, and it was one of the few rooms that had it, at least that we could see. So that was really cool to have those in there. And it became even cooler when we found out our son had a heart condition, which I will talk about in the second video. Okay, so the next thing they did was get me a IV, because they need to get you hooked up to an IV before you can get the epidural. And they weren't going to call the anesthesiologist until I had that in. So until I had the IV in. I just hear my baby. I'm going to go grab him. So it took a few tries to get my IV in. There was a student nurse and then the head nurse kind of in charge of my care. And the student nurse tried 2 times. One of my veins blew. I don't have the greatest veins. And I think it was the 3rd or 4th time, I want to say. We actually don't, I asked my husband, we don't remember if it was 3 or 4, but took a few tries to get the IV in, and we got it in. Then they went ahead and called the anesthesiologist. So I got the epidural, and once you get an epidural, you also get a catheter put in. So I got that put in. A lot of people have asked me how much the epidural hurt, and I felt the freezing needles. They give you a freezing needle first, then they give you the epidural, and I didn't feel the epidural needle. I felt maybe a little bit of pressure, but for me, the pain of kind of going through that process was worth it to get the relief from the contractions. Okay, so at this point I was all set up with my epidural and I was progressing. The OB came in and broke my water because she wanted to keep things moving along. She didn't say this, but as far as I understand, sometimes getting an epidural can slow down your laboring process. So she just explained that she wanted to keep things moving. So she broke my water, and then it was just a few hours of kind of hanging out, which was really nice. The nurses were really nice. They would keep rotating me back and forth, and they'd use a peanut ball. It's literally shaped like a peanut, and that helps you with the labor process. And they were monitoring the baby, and they were bringing me warm blankets, and it was really nice. My husband was there. We were chatting. I think I even had a little snooze. I remember feeling some pressure during contractions, and I would ask the nurse who was monitoring me and could see on the monitor when I was having contractions if what I was feeling was in line with what the computer was showing. And she said yes, so I could feel the pressure. I couldn't feel pain, but I could feel the pressure of when the contractions were coming. So all was kind of going well, and I was continuing to progress. They were monitoring the baby as well, monitoring his heart rate. And for I think about an hour or so, they had a nurse sitting beside me watching his heart rate. And unfortunately, they weren't getting a consistent heart rate. They had me move in different positions, which was hilarious because I was frozen from the waist down. So there was a few nurses and my husband turning me over onto my knees and trying on different sides because they were trying to get a consistent heart rate for our little guy. So it had been over an hour of this, and even putting a heart monitor on his head. And the OB came in and said, we are not getting a consistent heart rate. At that point, I was at 8 centimeters, and because I wasn't ready, I had to be at 10 centimeters to be able to push. She said, we need to get him out. We can't wait until you get to 10 centimeters. We now know what was likely happening is he had the cord wrapped around his foot. So when I got a contraction, it would get pulled on and his heart rate would go up and then drop back down, and it wasn't at all where they were comfortable with it. So the OB came in. She was very kind the whole way through, everybody was, and explained what was happening, that we weren't getting the heart rate and it was too soon to push. So she said that she wanted to do a C-section. And at that point, it was really neat because we knew that something was wrong, and the nurses weren't quite telling us. I think just because they didn't know, they were waiting to talk to the doctor, things like that. I don't think they did anything wrong, but we didn't know exactly what was happening. So my husband and I are talking, and I'm feeling nervous just at the fact that I don't know if the baby's okay. I didn't know what we needed to do. But as soon as she came in and explained things to us and said she thinks we should do a C-section, we both just felt like a sense of peace that, okay, we know what's going on. This is the best move for the baby, and we were just kind of ready to go. We also know that the Lord was looking out for us. We had prayed a lot for this little guy, and we knew that he was going to take care of him. It was definitely a little scary because I wasn't planning on a C-section. It wasn't a scheduled C-section, but it was neat. We both kind of felt that sense of peace as soon as she said, okay, this is what we're doing. So yeah, we were both amazed at how fast the C-section went. They got me ready. My husband waited in another room, but I got ready. My husband came in, and it was less than 10 minutes when the anesthesiologist said, okay, Dad, take out your camera. Baby's coming. And there he was. I felt like it took no time at all to take him out. The anesthesiologist especially was so kind. He took photos for us of Theodore when he was first born, and when my husband was holding him, and all three of us together. It was so kind. I just remember, I think I can even hear me on camera say, I can't believe it's over, because it was just such a, whirlwind of things happening, and all of a sudden our baby was out. I can't believe it's over. We heard him cry right away, which was a very comforting sign. He went to get checked, and within a minute or two, my husband was holding him, and that was really cool. So as they were working on me, my husband and Theodore are sitting at my head, which is so sweet. Theodore is holding my finger, kind of as if to comfort me while I'm finishing up surgery, so that was really cool. The second part of the C-section, where they are closing you back up, took a bit longer, more like half an hour, I would say, maybe a bit longer. So they stayed with me for most of it until they were moved to my recovery room, and then they finished up with me in the surgery room, and then I got taken over to see them. We really wanted to do skin-to-skin time, and my husband had gotten to do that with him already, which was really nice, and so I got to hold him. I think we had tried feeding as well, which was a whole new experience, as those of you who have tried that probably can relate to, but he did really well. And then at that point he was weighed and measured and all that, so it was really special to get those moments at the beginning with my husband holding him and me holding him. So we did discover the next day, thanks to a wonderful pediatrician, that he had a heart condition, and that kind of took us on another adventure for the next few days. We definitely knew that the Lord was with us the whole time, and I'm so thankful for my faith and family and friends who were praying for us, and my husband, who was just awesome the entire time. Honestly, I feel like I had a pretty positive birth experience. I am thankful that I got the epidural. I kind of went into it saying, I would see how it went, but I wasn't opposed to getting an epidural. I know everybody has different opinions, everybody has a different story, and that is totally okay. Yeah, you tell them. You tell him. But yeah, then we ended up doing an emergency C-section, which was kind of good that I had the epidural already, because they didn't have to give me another needle for the surgery. But yeah, I've been able to come away from my birth experience feeling really good, and feeling like I had a positive experience. I had some wonderful staff taking care of us, and yeah, if the Lord blesses us with another baby, I know I'm going to be nervous just because that's what happens, but I do feel like, we can do this. And we are just so thankful that this little guy is here and that God gave us to him. He really is God's gift to us, just like his name says. If you are interested in hearing the next part of his story, which was another crazy adventure, you can check out the next video. Oh, yes. Let's get someone ready for a nap, and then I'm going to continue and share the next part of his story. If I could give any advice, and take this for what it's worth, I'm a first-time mom, but I would encourage you to talk about your birth experience, regardless of how it went. I just found, telling people about it, and even doing this now, is helpful for me just to talk through it. And yes, I would say overall it was a positive birth experience, but there was ups and downs, as you could tell. I was nervous at times, I was in pain at times, and yeah, it definitely helped sharing that story with different people. Maybe you don't want to tell a bunch of people, but if you can find one trusted friend that you feel comfortable with, just talking through it, I think, is so beneficial for anybody. So I encourage you to do that. Regardless of what you did an epidural, you did a C-section, whatever, you did all natural, home birth. I think all women are just amazing. It made me appreciate my mom and all the other women in my life so much more than I already did. So if you have given birth in whatever way it was, just know that you are amazing, and kudos from me to you. Good job. I am going to get ready and film my next video about our kind of crazy week after he was born. So if you're interested in that, I will see you then. Thanks for hanging out with us. Bye.